CSUN staff member, a former member of the men's volleyball team here, and I'm also, some of you may know, the broadcast voice of the men's basketball team. Today marks the third Hall of Fame ceremony that I have had the pleasure to act as your MC, and this is really one of just the most exciting events of the year. I'm really thrilled to be here again, and I thank the members of the Hall of Fame committee and everyone for asking me to be here today. Today, we pay tribute to our outstanding honorees and celebrate Cal State Northridge athletics. I now have the great honor of introducing our Director of Athletics. He's entering his 6th year at the helm of our department and has overseen many great improvements to our department and improved opportunities for our 350 current student athletes. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our Director of Athletics, Mr. Rick Mazzuto.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Short comments. It's only 6 pages, so but don't. At my age, it's very large type, so it'll go quickly. Again, thank you for coming and supporting our Hall of Famers today. You know that. This is a public service announcement. My friend Tom Ford, of course, would do that to me. Presenters and Hall of Famers, we really do love you, but we want to keep it within a time frame, and Matty the Matador is going to be the tough guy, so he's counting the minutes. Hey, listen, this is a wonderful event. It's, as you know, we've done this event since 1981. We've had many editions of it, many wonderful coaches, student athletes, and administrators who've been inducted into our Hall of Fame. I might tell you that today the 2 individuals who started the Hall of Fame in 1981 are here today with Bob Heegert and Judy Brame. Please rise. Thank you so much. We wouldn't be here today without your vision. You know, there are a number of campus leaders here today, and I do want to introduce them to you. Tom McCarron, the Vice President for Administration and Finance, is here today. Please stand. And Rick Evans, who's Executive Director of the University Corporation, is here today. Please stand, be recognized. Cal State Northridge has gone through a tremendous evolution since its founding. I have had the good fortune of being the athletics director for the last 5.5 years. Now, I happen to hit the state of California at a time in which it has gone through a most extraordinary fiscal crisis. Conventional wisdom would say that, well, we're just going to hunker down and try to survive it, but in fact, this university has done the opposite. We continue to grow, we continue to evolve, and any of you who have not been to campus lately, I would really encourage you to park that car in one of those lots. There's plenty of parking spaces, and come and visit us. There is so much has happened in our recent history. I would tell you to 2 facilities in particular. Any of you have not seen or toured the Valley Performing Arts Center, you need to go there. It is a wonderful facility that is bringing world-class talent to our campus. Last month, and particularly for Northridge grads, the university opened a new student recreation center. And I would tell you that recreation center rivals that of any recreation center in America. So despite this difficult period in this state, we continue to move on and we continue to get better and better every day. Ladies and gentlemen, students are breaking down the door to come to our campus. Last fall, our enrollment was at 37,000. People want to be educated on our campus, and I don't think that will change anytime soon. Campus improvements also include athletic facilities. In the last few years, you'll note, particularly have a lot of soccer fans here today, our athletic competition field is lit. Those of you who attended the basketball game last night, the Matador is being transformed for not only our 2 volleyball and basketball teams, but also for our students who attend class in that facility. new video boards, new public address system, new press row tables. This summer, a new floor will be put in for those athletic teams and classes. One of the things that you didn't see last night, but you will certainly feel and sense next fall, is after our 50-year history of being shall we say, a non-air conditioned facility, the Matador will have air conditioning. I can assure you our teams will enjoy that. There is so much we can talk about our inductees, but I know that's going to come later. I do want to introduce a few groups to you, if I might. Today, in our presence, there are more than 20 Matador Hall of Fame members who were previously inducted. Would they please rise and be honored? Getting some advice, thank you. And what a wonderful group that's being inducted today. I mean, you understand most campuses would love to have one national championship trophy in their possession. Just one would be big news, but today we're honoring coaches and student athletes, and their 4 national championship plaques are outside. And it's a real testimony to the people who have participated in athletics in the past. And we're so delighted that we're able to honor them at this time. You know, this event doesn't take place in a easy kind of way. It is a complicated matter to stage a luncheon for over 300 people, and we have great campus partners. Our Alumni Association, our Advancement Office, other campus partners along with the Department of Athletics. Could I ask everyone in the room today who is working this event, including many of our undergraduate students, would they please rise and be recognized? There's so much more to say, but I'm going to let other people do it. It's a real honor for me to introduce our next speaker. He was appointed Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Cal State Northridge in 2004. He also served as Dean and Professor of the College of Liberal Arts at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo from '98 to '04. Previously, he's been the professor at the College of Liberal Arts at Minnesota Duluth. I'm sure he's happy to be here today and not in Duluth, by the way. But he is a recipient of an undergraduate degree from Harvard and holds a PhD in literature from Stanford. But let me tell you the really important facts about this gentleman. At Poly Prep in Brooklyn, New York, he not only was an all-New York City soccer player, but during his high school career, he pitched a perfect game in baseball. Those are things that you probably didn't know about. His name is Dr. Harold Hellenbrand. However, on our campus, he is Harry, and he is without question one of the outstanding campus leaders in our country, and I am so delighted that he is serving currently as our interim president. Please say hello to Harry Hellenbrand.
Well, Rick, it's no bull to say that I'm proud to be a Matador. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And you know, many of us have known the fleeting honor and fleeting success of hammering a baseball with a bat and feeling the sweet feel of the ball as it rounds off the bat. Some of us have been lucky enough to drop a curve over the far end of the plate. Others of us have been able to put the ball in the corner of the tennis box. And some of us have headed a ball into the goal. We've been able to do these things fleetingly with a little success, but few of us have had the ability and the capacity to do what our honorees have done today, which is to maintain that success over a season, over a career, and over a lifetime. And even fewer of us have done that while being scholars and athletes at the same time. And that's what the people who have achieved success and we're honoring here today have done. Today's inductees all have contributed to the legacy of this university. They've all been outstanding students and outstanding athletes. Larry Ramirez distinguished himself as a leader and a great teammate on the 1970 National Baseball team. John Tronan remains one of the most dominant forwards on the men's soccer team in the history of this university. The late coach Bill Cullum was a widely respected men's golf coach who was inducted into the Golf Coaches Hall of Fame in 1989. And of course, the 1983 women's softball team won a national championship, and we're tremendously glad that they're with us today. Let's hear a round of applause for all those great heroes. Like these honorees, many of our graduates in athletics and elsewhere have gone on to great success in the world. Sean Franklin has been a Major League Soccer Rookie of the Year and 2011 MLS champion. We all remember Lyman Bostock and Adam Kennedy, who won various awards in Major League Baseball. And former Matador athletes have been honored and remain engaged with us in our Committee on Engagement. Zachheim is one of them, Bob Myman, Brad Bolus, Joe Butita, and Bob Harigard are outstanding people who have remained engaged with us over the years as alums who have won awards and done wonders for this university and this community. To build on this legacy is very important to us. We're not just looking backwards, but we're looking forward. And because of that, we've put together the Committee on Engagement, which is looking to make athletics an even stronger niche of this university. But what is really outstanding about this, I think, is a legacy of having athletes who are scholars and outstanding students and great citizens. Because it's one thing to win a game, it's another thing, and I know this sounds trite, but it's another thing to win the game of life and to bring teammates and communities along with you. And that's what we pride ourselves for, is not just the 35 national championships that we've won, but the day-to-day championships that these people have brought to California, to the United States, and to their communities. So it's my pleasure to be here today. I look forward to an outstanding ceremony. And it's really wonderful to see all you people coming back for this reunion and this wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Each inductee has a special presenter that I will call to the podium. They'll give you a bit of insight into each inductee as we congratulate them on their well-deserved honor. I want to mention one other item before we bring our first presenter to the stage. He is one of the founders of this great event that we celebrate today. He, along with the then senior women's administrator, Judy Brame, who is here today somewhere. Where are you, Judy? There she is. They had this idea to honor our own and show the future members of the Matador family what has been accomplished, and we thank you for that. I now ask that you put your hands together for the former head coach of the Matador baseball team and a Hall of Fame member himself, Mr. Bob Hiegert.
Where's Tom Ford? I'm going to ask for a personal privilege, which is not on my clock, okay? All right. As a former Hall of Famer and originator of this event, we're really pleased that you're continuing this. This is a very special, I think, time for the athletic program. I'm very glad you're continuing to honor it in the fashion in which you are. I want to say a couple of things on each of the candidates tonight before we get started, because I was involved in most of their athletic lives, whether they knew it or not. John Tronson, we moved men's soccer to the football field, and we played soccer at night. We're the only team in Southern California to do that. And we had a very noisy opponent one night, and the fan session was causing a lot of problems, and I went over to see what the issue was. And this lady stood up and was yelling, "This is not fair, this is not fair. Our little team is playing against a giant." And when you see John Tronson later today, you'll understand that. He was a little different from the normal protocols of prototypes of soccer players. Bill Cullum was my office mate. I got a chance to share a few stories with the golfers over there. Bill is probably as good a communicator as I was. We said absolutely nothing. And the only argument we had over the 15 years was his office mate was who was going to be able to put the awards on the blank wall in there. He loved putting your All-American certificates up, do you remember? But recruited some outstanding golf athletes, and you'll hear more about that today. And lastly, at the end of the 80 decade, NCAA had combined women's and men's championships under one roof, the NCAA. And Cal State Northridge Athletic Program was awarded the outstanding Division II program in the country for combined championships with the NCAA. And most of those awards came through the softball program. There was 4 national championships during that period, a number of Division II finishes, number 2 finishes, and their successes really garnered the award for being the best program for a decade with combined men's and women's championships. So softball players, we appreciate all your efforts in the past. Last candidate I'm to introduce and induct, and I want to give you a little bit of a history of the time. This was the summer of 1968. Larry came recommended by a very prominent junior college coach, and I was very happy to get he and his roommate at the time, Mike McClure, to be part of the Matador team. 1968 on college campuses in the United States was a very, very interesting time. There were a lot of anti-war protests. The Washington sit-ins was called now we occupy, but in those days they sat in. It was tough economic times, very, very turbulent times in the United States, and a lot of that carried into the college campuses. There was a Kent State massacre, killings it was called in those days. There was tremendous campus involvement, demonstrations at Berkeley on the West Coast, and San Fernando Valley State College was not far behind in that. So students that were going to school in those times, 68, 70, and 69, the period of time these guys were playing, and we're honoring Larry for, was a very different time to be a student. And I think students took 2 routes. One of them would be coming to campus, getting very involved in the social injustice causes, the racial injustice causes, and deciding to get involved in that and either drop out of school or just simply exist with those issues, not attending many classes. Other students tried to be a typical student. They went to class, avoided the conflicts as much as they could, had their part-time jobs, and if they're involved in teams, did those teams as they could in the afternoons and try to do the best they can. Larry Ramirez did both, and he did them both very well. Very active with the social injustice issues, was a good student, had a part-time job, and was a great teammate. So I think he was a little bit different from most of the typical student athletes we had at the time because he was a full-on guy in everything he did. In baseball, we would take the first road trip of the year. I tried to make it as difficult on the team as we could so we could find out what kind of characters they were, whether we were going to be good or bad, and what we had to work on to win a championship and hopefully get into NCAA postseason play at the end of the year. This particular year, we went to Arizona State for a 3-game series, played Friday and Saturday doubleheader, traveled on Sunday, played University of Arizona on Monday and Tuesday. And on the way home, I'm not sure how the athletes travel now, Rick, but we took state-issued vehicles. And if they started, that was a good thing. And you were almost assured if that happened, the radio would not work. And in those days, there was no iPhones, there's no smartphones, there was no Walkman, and we had no radio. So it was you, your teammates visiting, and whatever scenery was out the window was what you occupied yourself on the road trips. And our end of that 5-day road trip, as we're coming home, I had dinner with the kids, got in the car, and I'm adjusting my rearview mirror, and right behind me in my seat is Larry Ramirez, sitting right dead behind me. And I was just looking forward to a nice, long, quiet drive that I could just kind of reflect on the weekend in terms of what was going on. And everyone started talking. We're about 8 o'clock. We're in the middle of the desert someplace driving home. And Larry asks, "Coach, have you seen All in the Family?" I said, no. I was deep in thought. And I look around and everyone else in the car is asleep. So Larry proceeds to tell me about every episode of All in the Family. At 10 o'clock, he says, Coach, you've seen any good movies? I said, no, I haven't. Larry told me about the 2001 Space Odyssey and a number of other movies. About midnight, he said, what do you think of what's happening on campus? And I said, not much. 2 o'clock, he tells me about his academic career and what he's planning on doing. 4:30, we thank God, pull back into the parking lot. I said, Larry, would you wake your teammates up, get your gear, I'll see you at practice. So as I go to practice that day, the coaches were there. Coach, how was your ride home? I said, it was good. But I'm going to ask you one thing, and never let Larry Ramirez ride with me again. And number two, when you discuss something with him, don't. Tell him. So Larry will tell you later, probably today, that our mound conversations, when I went to the mound, if he was having trouble, I would say, Larry, what's up? And he would start into something, and I'd say, that's it. Here's what I want you to do. Throw strikes or you're out of the game. And I'd go back and sit down. We got along very well for the next year and a half. Kidding aside, if you look at your programs and read his accomplishments, let's talk a little bit about his athletic accomplishments. It doesn't say much there, but those 3 sentences athletically, we're not here today without Larry's expertise at the end of our season in 1970. He's won 20 wins and lost 8 in a 2-year career. But what you don't read in there is that he was our ace of our staff, and he went against the other institution's best pitcher. So those were hard-earned victories, and we needed that to establish the tenor we wanted to have in a 3-game series as we were playing. In baseball, in the regional championship and national championship play, you play what's called double elimination tournaments. So if you lose, that's called an elimination game, the next one. If you don't win that, you go home. Larry started that in Sacramento, won that game. We went on to the College World Series in Springfield, Missouri, and he won that elimination game and enabled us to win a national championship. Without that happening, without his efforts, we're not here today honoring this particular team. You may hear having a Hall of Fame, but it would not involve these teams. I think as you hear coaches today and other times talk about players, you talk about players' determination, their work ethics, their value to the team, how much they value the team, how much they put into that, their intelligence, their skill, and somewhere in the long line there's going to be a thing called toughness that comes up. And in Larry's case, every one of those characteristics, he's at the top of the chart, except the last one. Toughness, he was off the chart. He's in a different world from that standpoint as much as a player could be. And I think we could stop right there and talk about his induction today, and it'd be worthy of that. But as said earlier today, Larry's body of work for the university is what is also important here, and I think something that needs to be stated. Following baseball, he went back into his academic area and worked very hard, got his master's degree, was hired on the faculty here at Cal State Northridge, and became a tenured professor at the age 32. That's remarkable. That's something that normally does not happen. Went on to finish his PhD, left the university, and went into a very successful private practice. Served as the expert witness for the Indian Child Welfare Act and the Native American Freedom of Religion Act in 1983. In a cold winter afternoon in North Tahoe, he was involved in a head-on collision. And the prognosis at the time, if he survived, was he would be paralyzed and be a paraplegic for the rest of his life, never walk again. Needless to say, I think the surgeons attending and the physicians that day knew nothing about the man. And 3 years following that date, Larry took his first steps, and today you'll see when he's able to walk up here and use full use of his arms. So he's made tremendous recovery. And it's only because I think of the toughness of the man and the determination of his actual spirit. I think the trauma that the Ramirez family went through during those years is unimaginable, and the determination and the fight and the family was very amazing to watch and to witness as we got together over the years. In 2003, he asked me to help induct him into the Native American Athletic Hall of Fame. That was back in Oklahoma City. A number of his teammates attended that with him, and we were really honored to see and privileged to see the love he has for his Native American heritage and roots, and it was a tremendous honor on my behalf to be able to be there and do that. And today, again, it's my pleasure to both honor and to introduce to you the 2001 Hall of Fame inductee, Cal State Northridge Hall of Fame inductee, Larry Ramirez. Larry?
Thank you. A couple of things I just want to say as I go on. First of all, everybody in this room should be very proud of the people that put this on. The university, if you start to realize it, is really changing in terms of their athletic department, in terms of the way they're going back and looking at the great history that this university has. And it's all because of Mr. Mazzuto and his staff and those individuals that are involved in producing this. And some of you might not know a little bit about Coach Hiegert. When he says that he came on the mound and basically told me to throw strikes, and I'm going to tell you a short story to probably sum up things. Coach, at the national championship game that he's referring to, we had lost to Missouri State. Then was called Southwest Missouri State, but now called Missouri State. We had lost to them the first game, and they had a really good ball club. And I had been, even though I was an All-American candidate at the time, I came back from South Dakota at the College All-Star League with a sore elbow. I had pitched 4 consecutive days in a row. Started, relieved, relieved, started. And in today's world, that would never happen. I wouldn't let my kids do that. But in those days, that's what went on. But Coach, on that night, before we played Missouri State again, we either go into the championship game or we go home. Coach came that night with Coach Jaquez, Coach Davila, Lori Grishon, into my room, and Coach Jaquez says to me, this is your game tomorrow. You're going to be, when you're on, there's nobody better. And when you're not, Coach looks at me and he says, you walk one guy, you're coming out. No, this is true. I'm not fooling, this is true. I kind of look at him and look at myself, and that's it, walks out. Okay, I know my job, I know what I'm supposed to do. Now, you have to remember the times like he was talking about in 1970. Vietnam, a lot of civil rights issues, people being beaten up. This university, one of the most significant people in my life, Stan Chernofsky, and I don't know if Stan's here or not, but those kind of people, along with the coaches, were embroiled in a lot of conflicts with Black Student Union, a lot of civil rights stuff that thank God they got done. We needed to have it done. Things like that. Mr. Watkins will tell you what it was like at those times. And during those times, it was really difficult for somebody like me because it stirred up so much emotions. Well, Coach was a real smart man. And the guy he talked about, the coach, Squire from Mount Sac, knew kind of how to push my buttons. And when Coach told me, you walk one guy, well, hey, first batter, what am I going to do? No, I throw 3 balls. All right? Okay? I look over, and I just see this look on his face, meaning somebody in the bullpen, get somebody warmed up, whatever. All right? I look around, and I realize I got to get to work here. I go, you know, and it came back and struck the guy out on 3 pitches. And the rest is history. But what is really the history and is my background. Where I came from, how I grew up, the roots that I have. Half my family on my mother's side, actually my mother's side of the family, is buried in a mission in Riverside, outside of Riverside, California, called Awa Mansa. And they're buried in the Indian section. In those days, Indian and Mexican people were on this side, and non-Indian people were on that side. And when I was a little boy, we used to go out and clean up the cemetery plots. There was little sticks, and we'd try to find my grandmother, her sisters, other parts of the family. And eventually we got to the place where the family could afford a cemetery plot with marble, and we got that done for my grandmother. And as a kid, my father was in World War II, was a scout, was for 1.5 years in the Philippines, and was shot in Leyte Island through the shoulder, and he came back and rehabilitated for about 1.5 years. But he suffered from this thing that unfortunately comes with war, and you're going to see this a lot more when our soldiers get back. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, post-traumatic stress disorder, if not treated, gets worse, gets worse, and gets worse. And anybody in here, I'm sure, who themselves or has family members who've suffered from that, have heard the screams at night, have had the pain of living with somebody who doesn't want to talk about it, but you know it lives within them. And I've always said that it's the experiences in life that shape our person. And the soul doesn't record time, just events. And those events lived in my father. So my house at night was kind of a scary place sometimes. And eventually my household was destroyed by that. And I grew up, and thank God for aunts and uncles and grandparents, and eventually ended up in a Catholic rectory. And I know the Catholic Church has gotten a lot of bad publicity and some bad things because certain priests have done certain things they shouldn't do. Well, that wasn't my case. Father Gian, Father Savord, Monsignor Thompson, they all took an interest in me and actually kind of built a foundation for me. And they, sounds funny, but they really taught me how to be a good student, taught me to read. But the one thing they couldn't do was deal with all the pain and the emotions that I had inside of me. As I got older, nobody in my house finished high school. Nobody. Well, I finished high school, so first thing I did was get a job in a steel factory, working midnight to 7 in the morning. Midnight to 7 in the morning. One day, some guy shows up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he introduces himself and says, "Son, you have a career in baseball." Well, God, I don't know who this guy is. You know, he's a molester. Well, I don't know who this guy is. And it turns out his name is Ron Squire, who had written 2 books on pitching and you had to take a test before you ever pitched one pitch in a ball game with him. And test on pitching? You either throw it cross seams or with the seams, you rear it back and you throw it. How do you write a book on that? Well, this man was brilliant. And he taught me. He taught me how to look at a person's stance, the way they hold a bat, what happened last time, what kind of pitcher are you, what's working for you, what isn't working for you, how to throw this, how to throw it. All of a sudden, you know, wow, there's a lot to this thing called pitching. But I still had little problems with control a little bit. You know, it was either strike 3 guys out or walk 3 guys. And thank God I had the best infield in the country. You know, Ron Valenti, you know, Mike McClure, Skip Effler, you know, Frank Slayton, who we lost, and the great Irv Zackheim, who you guys honored just recently. And those guys got me through a lot of games because I learned, okay, if I don't strike you out, here, hit this. Oh, thank you, double play, see you guys later, you know. And that became kind of a intellectual theme in my head, and started to learn how to do that correctly. As I got older, and as we grew as a team, during those times, you have to remember what times we're in, and we were like everybody else. We had disputes, we had arguments, and half the time nobody knew what I was talking about, you know, and guys would tease me and laugh, say, oh, that's an Indian thing, you know. Forget it, you ain't gonna, you know. Well, in 69, or 70, when I came back from the College All-Star League in South Dakota, on the board, to show you how much we grew, on the board was an article in Baseball Collegiate Magazine. And it talked about the top pitchers in the country. And it talked about me being one of the top pitchers in the country. Well, somebody had written across it, the coaches had put it up, and somebody had written across it, bullshit. You know, it kind of hurt my feelings, but that's where we started. By the end, those guys had my back. When we were in, oh man, I said I wouldn't do this. When we were in the College World Series, and people were describing me using the N-word, people were, and my father was there. It's the only time he ever got to see me pitch. Like I said, so alone in Cords events, not time. But he got to see me pitch. And thank God I got past those 3 balls. But like I said, coach is smart. He knew what to say, and he knew how to bring that out of me. And that's what good coaching is. I've learned. What good coaching is that guy seeing at 6 o'clock in the morning, this tall, brown, skinny guy that he can see can be something. Not just in baseball, but in life. I was fortunate to have somebody like that. I was fortunate to have a coach like Coach Egert, because he saw me. He saw what I could do. He knew when to pat me on the back, and he knew when to get in my face. And that's what good coaches do. They know. They know how to treat each player as an individual and what brings things out in each one of those guys. And I was fortunate to have that. And as I stand before you, this university was that for me. As my grandfather would say, you can have the best seeds in the world, but if you don't throw them on fertile soil, you're going to be disappointed with the yield. But if you take those seeds and you put them in good soil, in good environment, they'll blossom. And that's what this university has done. And we should be very, very proud of that. Because as we go down the road here, because of people like Mr. Mizuto and his staff, I think we're going to have more of that. I think we're going to have more of these meetings. I think we're going to have more and more great athletes. And I'm right now hoping to get my tribe to put up a scholarship So some little skinny brown kid can come here and play ball. And if they're lucky, they'll have a coach who knows how to bring the best out of them, like this university brought the best out of me. Thank you.
Street sweeper manufacturing plant in Pomona. John went on to specialize in creating sports illustrations, especially motorsports artwork, which he has specialized in for the past 40 years. John himself had planned on attending today's ceremony, but a last-minute change in his travel schedule precluded him from attending. In John's words, "I just hope this will represent me and my positive feeling for Larry at this event that he richly deserves."
Thank you.
Our next presenter is a member of the class of 1988. He's also a member of the Matador Athletics Hall of Fame due to his success with the men's soccer team during his undergraduate years. Now a special agent with the FBI, please welcome Mr. Mike McAndrew.
Thank you. I've known John a long, long time now. We played together as kids at Winnetka Park here in the Valley. When we were growing up, as teenagers, we played together on club teams, traveling the state, playing in tournaments. We had 3 great seasons together here at Cal State Northridge. And after that, we even kicked around a few years on club teams and semi-pro teams in Southern California. So when John reached out to me a few weeks ago and told me the great news that he was finally getting inducted into the hall here, I was thrilled for him, and I was thrilled that he asked me to be here and be a part of it. The first thing I thought about when thinking about this is what took so long. John was, without question, one of the most dominant and successful players that ever played soccer at Northridge. If you look at the stats in the brochure, 3rd all-time career goal scorer, 3rd in total points, 3rd in goals in a season, 8th in assists all-time, 1984 first conference MVP, 85 conference MVP, and 1986 first team All-American. There are those that would argue that getting into a Hall of Fame is about more than stats. I'm one of those people. I have to be because I'm in and I have way fewer stats than John. And in thinking about talking about John here today, he's one of the people that they interviewed on my background before I got into the FBI. And I did get in, which means he said some nice things about me and left out quite a few things, so. Today it's my turn to return the favor, so I'm gonna be short and I'm gonna be clean. But what I was referring to before was impact. What impact does a player have on his team? What impact does he have on the program? And again, Johnny ranks among the best without a doubt. Johnny was co-captain of the team the 3 years he played. The years he played, we won the conference championship, 84, 85, and 86. We went from being an unranked team to reaching the #1 ranked team in Division II in the entire country. We went from playing our games in the afternoon on a practice field in front of a couple dozen people to playing at the North Campus Stadium at night in front of a few thousand people. And when the crowds were out there and they'd start getting into the game and chanting, inevitably they were chanting Tronson. He was a leader, natural leader on and off the field. He played with total abandon. He threw his body around the field. He dominated. He played with such a positive attitude and enthusiasm that he motivated everybody he played with. He was he'll be the first one to tell you that it's a team sport, and he had a lot of good teammates, which is true. But he was so dominant and such an impactful player that our coach at the time, Marwan Assad, who's here today and is also in the Hall of Fame, created a system around Johnny. POMO, position of maximum opportunity. Basically consisted of putting John in front of the opposing team's goal and feeding him the ball, usually high in the air above everybody else, and letting him wreak havoc on the other team, which he did consistently. He was totally successful at that, and he led us to all those championships. There's another reason that things more than goals get you in the Hall. Some of us had to actually play defense and do the less glorious things, right, Thorley? But Johnny played hard all the time. He raised the level of the team. He raised the level of the program. He had a huge impact. Lastly, you know, after his playing season was over, he graduated from the school. He went on to have a very successful business career. He's been involved in a lot of programs that benefit the community. He's been a big supporter of the soccer program, big supporter of the university. So again, as far as being an ambassador for the program, there's nobody in the history of the program that's better than John at it. So based on all those things, stats, impact on the program, ambassador for the school and the program, this has been a long time overdue. I'm thrilled that Johnny's finally getting in. I'm very honored he asked me to be here and be a part of it. And so I present to you one of the most dominant and successful players ever to play at Cal State Northridge, my teammate and good friend, John Tronson.
Thank you very much. I'm a little bit nervous, and I do a lot of public speaking, so I'm not really sure exactly why I'm nervous. I think most of the time it's because you just don't want to screw up. But the most important thing I want to remember to do is to adequately acknowledge my teammates. Mike McAndrew preceded me into the Hall of Fame. My first year in 1984, I had the pleasure of playing with a gentleman named Jose Perez, who's also in the Hall of Fame. Our fantastic coach, Marwan Assad, has been inducted as well. And I've noticed that they don't really, put players into the Hall who were on very bad teams. So I'm pretty sure that this is yet another one of those things that's happened to me where, the team really does great things and I get all the credit, which is the way it always was when we played. We had a very, very, very talented team, and they just decided that they wanted to put me up front. And when you get into that position, you end up scoring a lot of goals, and they used to take great pleasure in poking fun at me that I was always the guy that always got my picture in the paper and was always getting asked questions. But I just want to make sure that I adequately acknowledge the effort that all of our teammates put forth. We were a ragtag group of young gentlemen from the San Fernando Valley and from the Simi Valley and from the Thousand Oaks Agoura area. And we really enjoyed playing the game. And we would play in our spare time, 2 of us, 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us. We'd play. Sneak into a gym and play. If it was raining, we'd play in a sandbox, literally, if we decided we wanted to try something new. And we were honored, and it was a pleasure to represent California State University Northridge. We liked being from the San Fernando Valley. We were proud of our community, and we were happy to take on anybody who wanted a piece of us. And it was a pleasure, gentlemen, for all of you who have made the effort here to lace it up with you for so many years. It was a whole heck of a lot of fun. I especially want to thank Mike McAndrew. He's, along with being an obviously wonderful presenter, he made the long trip out here from Connecticut. And Mac was really our leader on the field. and was a phenomenal leader off the field. I've been lucky enough to be involved in some of the activities at Cal State Northridge. I'm on the Intercollegiate Athletic Advisory Council, where we do a very little bit of overseeing of a wonderful program that ensures that our student athletes have all the tools that they need to perform well in the classroom. And those include, you know, mandatory study halls and mentors and liaisons with professors, and there's a lot of things that the university does these days that really assist the student athletes to excel in the classroom. We had none of that. And Mac was our entire, you know, a peer group mentor and role model. He was the only guy who, you know, was the engineering major, and he got fantastic grades. And so we all looked at Mac and said, oh, God, you know, if he's doing it, then I guess we got to do it too. But he's been an exemplary citizen here in the San Fernando Valley all through his days at California State University, Northridge, and beyond. And I really want to thank you, Mac, for taking the time to come out here. It's just been a pleasure spending some time with you on the field and off over the years. So, teammates, I love you. Thank you so much. I want to thank my friends and family for coming out and supporting. They've been here, you know, all along. I've got some really great friends. I've been lucky enough to coach some youth teams, and I've got some of the girls I coached here and their parents who are wonderful parents on the sidelines. I've got my big contingent from my family, my sister and my brother and my mom and my dad and my beautiful wife and my two beautiful daughters that I can honestly say I enjoy spending every day of my life with. And great work contingent and a spattering of nieces and nephews. And we, all of us inductees, really appreciate you guys coming out and taking the time to acknowledge our efforts. Lastly, I want to just, as Larry did so well, just thank the university for putting on these types of events and for really reaching back out to the alumni and the people who cared so much about this university in the past and still do. If you haven't been back to the university, you really need to go. It's a transformed and phenomenal world-class campus, and you will be shocked. I took my good friend Greg Campbell there last night for the first time in 25 years, and you know, and the facilities that they've built and the wonderful way they've gone about it is special. So I'd encourage you all to come back to the university, get involved, commit some time to the community, give back and support Cal State Northridge in the future. I thank you very, very much.
Among us today is an accomplished clarinetist. Not only is he an alumnus of the class of 1966, he spent a majority of his career working in the motion picture and television recording studios, having been a part of nearly 1,500 motion picture scores and hundreds of television shows. He's also served on the faculty here at CSUN and performed as the principal clarinetist with the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra and the Joffrey Ballet Orchestra. He knew our next inductee for over 15 years, and we appreciate that he is joining us today. A great friend of our next inductee, please welcome Mr. Jim Cantor.
What the hell is a clarinet player doing at a Hall of Fame induction for athletes? Well, let me explain. I first met Bill in about June of '86, and I was entered in the LA City Golf Championship, which for me was an annual exercise in frustration I always put myself through. It happened I was paired with three much younger players that included a guy named Dave Fernandez, I'm sure some of you guys remember. Darren Singer, I think, was in the group, and Billy Cullum, Bill's son. We had a gallery of one Bill Cullum, Coach Cullum, Billy's father. Since all three of my playing partners were less than half my age and seemed to know each other pretty well, I directed my attention to Bill Sr. just to have somebody to talk to during the 2 rounds that occurred over 2 days. The coach was there obviously to watch Billy play, to give him some support, and I think as Billy would put it, later to bug Billy about how he'd played. Over those 2 days, I got to know Coach pretty well, and I grew to like him very, very much. I admired his interest in his son, Billy, willing to walk all 36 holes and take notes and otherwise stay out of everybody's way. I learned that Coach was also a member at Calabasas Country Club, and so when we joined in July of 1987, the next year, I made it a point to try to find Coach so that at least I'd have somebody there that I knew that I could play golf with. Didn't take long to find him, and I reintroduced myself and reminded him how we'd first met, and from that point, a very, very strong friendship ensued. Over the next 16 years, Bill and I became very, very good friends. In fact, Bill was my very best friend. We played a lot of golf together. We often took day trips and played golf in places like Paso Robles, Indio, who knows where, 3-4 hours drive. The golf was always great, always fun. Low key, no games, just pure golf. Sometimes we played pretty well, sometimes not so well. But the days were always perfect. He loved the game and he approached it as it should always be approached, as a constant work in progress. He had things in perspective. Please forgive me, I'm going to read because I don't want to leave any of this out. He had a good time, and as a result, I always had a good time, no matter how many 3-putts, no matter how many skanky iron shots I hit. I think far more significant than the golf we shared were the values he lived by. Coach was a straight-line thinker, old school. He was a man of principle. He was a man of integrity. What you saw was what you got. There were no hidden agendas, no funny stuff. Bill was a good man through and through. He loved his kids, Billy Jr. and Candace. I think Bill was the only person I ever knew who called Candace, Candace. And he treasured watching them grow into the wonderful people that they are today. He was proud of Billy's golf, and he went to great lengths to assist him with the progression into the career, into the business of the game. He loved Candace, and as always, and to the best of my knowledge, he saved Sundays after church and spent time with her and her husband, Troy. And he always talked about little special places they went on PCH to have lunch or just to hang out. That time with Candy meant that Bill was never available to play golf on Sundays, but that was okay. It was clear by his actions he had life in perspective. There are never-ending stories about his golf team, the players who passed through, many of whom went on to significant lives in the game, both competitively and in the business of the game, and he was proud of each and every player he ever coached and talked about it all the time. However, it wasn't until I got the invitation to participate in today's ceremony that I became aware of the profound accomplishments of Coach during his time at Cal State Northridge, going back to the San Fernando Valley State College days, in fact. He never spoke about his deeds, only of the players and his children, never about himself. But that was Bill. Sincere, humble, honest, and hardworking. My wife, Deborah, and I once visited Bill while on vacation in New England. He had a summer job as the head pro at Dublin Lakes Country Club in New Hampshire. We spent a few days in the area, played a few rounds together, had dinners together, and even went to a summer stock play in Peterborough. If you've never been to Peterborough, you've got to see it. Those few days live among our fondest vacation memories. Bill was a great and gracious host. He showed us all around the area and made time for us while we were visiting, as if we were visiting royalty. All the time there, he had a twinkle in his eyes. It was obvious he loved what he was doing. He loved everything about where he was. Although I never knew Bill when he was Coach Cullum, I think I can speak for all who've had the good fortune to have crossed paths with him when I say that we were all blessed to have known him. He left us with his grace, his integrity, his honesty, and his enthusiasm for life. We're happy to have known you, Coach, and we miss you. We rejoice today on the occasion of your induction into the CSUN Athletic Hall of Fame induction. It's richly deserved, my friend. And I know you're here in spirit to accept our congratulations collectively on a life well lived. Thank you, Bill.
I had the incredible fortune of having a fantastic father. Of course, I wouldn't, and I'm speaking for myself and my sister Candy, definitely wouldn't have said that at ages 5 through probably 17. And it wasn't until my 20s, 30s, 40s, married, having children, that I really got to appreciate how great a man he was. He was old school, a man of very few words, like Bob said, and so that could have been misconstrued for, detached or not caring. But, my dad was at every golf match, golf tournament during the summer. He drove me, my sister to horse equestrian events and soccer events, and he was always there. My dad was always there for us. He was a loving, caring father, great husband, great mentor, to my sister and I. He passed away about 8 years ago. The first memory I had of him, maybe about 4 years old, in Vail, Colorado. He worked for Arnold Palmer for about 18 or 20 years, running junior golf academies for Arnold in the summertime in Vail, and then later Stratton Mountain, Vermont. And one of my first memories as a human being was on the range watching my dad helping other people enjoy the game of golf. And even when during his last days, he was helping a buddy of mine, Eric, who I had met in the East Coast in the golf business. He was trying to help him get his first head pro job. This is maybe 2-3 days. He's in the ICU. I'm running down into the lobby, making phone calls, because you couldn't have a cell phone in intensive care. And so he was, from my first memory until his dying days, just really old school style, really loved his players and people that he came in contact with. He was always celebrating in the victories of his team, never taking credit for their successes. If Mike Turner got married and had kids, we would be the first to know, oh, Mike got married, or Dan played in a tournament and did this, or Fisher, his business is, he's building a golf course up in, you would hear about all these players. They might not still be in California, but he still nurtured and fostered those relationships well after they had left the team. So he I just want to thank Cal State Northridge for hiring my dad, giving him a chance. Originally, you guys hired him as the football coach. I think he made it a year or two, I'm not really sure. And then he went into golf, and he loved the game. He was hungry for knowledge. He amassed a collection of golf books of over 1,500 over the course of about 15 or 20 some odd years, involved with the PGA, National Golf Foundation, Golf Collector Society of America, just learning about coaching theory and swing techniques and you name it. And he really, really loved the game, but more important, he loved the people that he met through the game. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to celebrate all these well-deserved candidate inductees. And thank you, Cal State Northridge, for giving my dad this opportunity and recognizing his accomplishments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Billy. The son of Matador head golf coach Bill Cullum. In a new tradition that started in 2009, we are proud to induct another noteworthy team into our Hall of Fame. From one head coach to another, speaking on behalf of his team, the head coach of the 1983 Division II National Championship softball team and Hall of Fame member himself, CSUN alumnus, Mr. Gary Torgerson.
This past summer, or fall, I guess it was, my wife and I had a chance to have breakfast with the new coach, and she is awesome. Good things are going to come. There's no doubt about it. But today we're here to honor a team that started a lot of the tradition for softball and for Cal State Northridge. In those days, women were just really getting started to be recognized. Some of you that are historians remember that Title IX and how much we had to fight to really get women in this deserved recognition. Also, as Bob Hegert mentioned a little earlier ago, this was the first, this team, a lot of them, played on the first NCAA championship for softball. Several of the players had played on a team the year before when they were AIAW. But that's kind of what I'm going to do, is I'm going to set the stage as a historian, being part of Northridge since 1961. But the real thrill was being able to coach this group. We want to thank the athletic administration, the Alumni Association, and also the selection committee for honoring this well-deserved team. We want to congratulate the members that were just elected to this group, and as was said many times, they were very well deserving. But let me take you back to the early 80s and the late 70s. 1977 was the first time a softball team even started up on campus. It was a club team. It was a club team for a couple of years. But things started to move in the sense that the NCAA was going to come in, and finally the men were going to have to deal with the women a little bit too, because they were going to come in. And they did it just in a great manner. But there was a lot of things that really led up to this first national championship, as it does with any team. Because a team is made up of individuals who bond together for the common goal of hopefully winning. But you also have to get through the days when you lose. But we're not going to dwell on that today. the original teams played in a facility. I mean, probably if those of you that have daughters and such have heard all the stories, well, they're all true. And I had a real eye-opener in what was going on and the injustices that were going on in women's sports. But the first group played at a Little League field on campus. Now, if you're familiar with pitching in softball, it's a flat surface. And baseball, you know, they got to have that little extra momentum, so they have that mound or something. But there were 3 players off of the 81 team that we joined them, I should say, and it was great because they really knew what it was like to have to go through these growing pains. Sue Oran, Angela Lucero, Kathy Turner. They were the true, well, other than Debbie Chang, they were the true pioneers. I'm sorry. But everything was a pioneering thing at that time. The first group of recruits, we were recruited by a tryout on campus. Now, I'm not familiar with what they do in Division II or Division I, but we were allowed to have tryouts, and we invited about 30 women to camp or to try out. And from that 30, we asked 6 to join us. Becky, Dana, Stacy, Mishi, Linda, and Terry, who you'll meet later, all of them. But as we moved through the first fall, it was the first time that we were able to have fall practice. Now, the men have been able to have that, but the women didn't have that as part of their, of what they could do. And fall practices in those days, there was no limits. I mean, you could practice the whole time, which we took advantage of that. And as I'm sure they would say, but I'm not going to give them the mic because the stories may hurt everybody's ears. Anyway, we also had a few players join us in the fall of '81 after we had selected the team, and they were a part of the '82 team. And as I mentioned, '82 was the first time that we were in NCAA competition. Backtrack, fall of '81, with the support of the great administration, our administration, Bob, Judy, and Sam, we were able to dig up some money to build a field. And that field was built probably in a record time. But to let you know, this wasn't some major contractor that came in and built this field. It was donated time. Our plant operation folks donated their time as long as we'd play them in a softball game every year. So, you know, we did that. We had to stop it after a while, but it was fun. The field was complete and the season got started. And we were able to win enough games and play well enough to get back to the national championship at Sacred Heart in Connecticut, and we played at the Ray Bestles Field, which those of you that know softball, that was the name of the team in the country. A lot's happened since then, from the Pro League, lots of things. We played well, we finished second. You know, it's like the old Hertz commercial, you know, it's, we finished second to the number 1, but there's always another year. And a group of the folks, of the players, stayed on with us and were joined by several recruits, Nancy Buell, Kim Breeden, Jamie Gray, Nancy Lucero, Kathy Carter, Terry Lamery, and Kathy Cat Sladen. But it was an interesting season. As those of you that have been around Northridge long enough, there seems to be always some catastrophe or something that happens or has happened. And, you know, every 15 years or so, we get a lot of rain in the San Fernando Valley. And this happened to be one of the years that we just had rainstorm after rainstorm after rainstorm. And it kind of makes it difficult when you're starting, stopping, you know, all this, having games rescheduled. But this team's resilience and their determination to do what they set out to do was magical. You just couldn't get them to be discouraged. Group of positive individuals. At the end of the season, we had to win a doubleheader to win conference against UC Riverside. And we did it. And that qualified us for regionals. And we were fortunate. We got to host regionals that year, and we were off. First 2 games of regionals, we blew them out, you know, 1-0, 2-0. That's how softball used to be. You got to remember that there were marathon games before the tiebreaker. I mean, the pitchers stood at 40 feet, and the ball was releasing their hand by the time it got to the batter. It was definitely not a hitter's game. And a lot of short game. Short game was the name of it. Get somebody on and score a run. In the 10th inning, after Kathy Slayton had, she struck out 23, but we couldn't score. You know, it is kind of funny to think about that nowadays, but it's since they've moved the mound back, they have a yellow ball, and they have bats that you can actually swing. That amazed me. Bats were like 40 ounces or so, like the men were using in slow pitch. That eventually started to change, which was really great. But anyway, we got a runner on. Kathy Turner was on. Michie came up and knocked in the winning run. It was great. So we're back to the national championship. And it was held at Hart Park, hosted by Chapman University, which just happened to be one of our rivals in the league. And anyway, they had to host it. They didn't get there, which was sweet. Not that we said anything, but, you know, it was understood. The tournament went like the regionals started out. We won the first 2 games and sent 2 teams home, Sacred Heart and another Texas team. So the finals were set with the same team that we had played the year before, Sam Houston University. And this was, again, one of those games. I mean, Cat struck them out, but we couldn't score. But they couldn't score either, so it was interesting. We left the bases full, which was amazing too, twice, and still couldn't score. But hey, you want to have drama. So that's what it was. The drama was set. We were the visiting team. We scored a run. Michie knocked in Linda Wandy, and we had the 1 run. But nothing was settled. We took the field. Cat set down the first 2. The third batter got on base. Their hitter that would come up was leading the nation in home runs. But Kathy Slayton had just set the record for the most strikeouts in the nation. So they dueled. Foul ball after foul ball after foul ball, the hitter would hit and foul off. Finally, she hit one, and the ball was deep. And there was 2 outs. It was hit to center field. Kim, I know I can't say can't breathe what was going through her mind, but she did a full 360. Came out, dove, and caught the ball. Yeah. So needless to say, as the tradition goes today, in baseball or most sports in softball. The team just went out there and went crazy. The emotion was high. And it was very exciting to know that this team would set the tradition for many, many teams in softball to go, and also be a part of this championship of men and women's sports, as Bob Eager talked about earlier. We're proud that we contributed to that. And they were just an awesome, awesome group of individuals. I do want to mention, though, even though when you have a team, individuals, as John Tronzo was mentioning, somebody gets recognized. But that can show you the athletic ability of the team that you're part of, and especially a championship team. So very quickly, I just want to read through this and let you know, because when I call them up, I want it to be a team thing. All conference between 82, Sue Oran, 82, Linda Lawandi, 82 and 83, Kathy Turner, 82, 83, Becky Drake, 82, 83, Michie McEnany, 82, 83, Dana Vasquez, 82. Now, we move on, and Angela Cerro, 82, Stacy Lim, 82, and Kim Breeden in 83. All region, Sue Oran in 82, Linda Lawandi in 82, Kathy Turner, 82, Kathy Slayton, 83, Michie McEnany, 83. All-American, Sue Oran, 82, Kathy Slayton, 83. All-National Tournament, Kathy Slayton, MVP, Kathy Turner, Terry Lamory, Linda Lawandi, and Stacy Leonard. Great group of people. And needless to say, you know, you can coach all you want, but if you don't have great captains that really do the things off the field that coaches can't do, we had two outstanding, Karen Mobilia and Kathy Turner. So before you get to meet all these wonderful, great players, and they solely great, with the mission, as I said in the beginning, they're winners. But more than that, they just bonded so strongly together. And one of the main people in this glue, and I was very fortunate to coach with her, Debbie Ching. Debbie played on the first club team, and she tells me that the first 2 years they really coached themselves. And if you go back historically in men's program, that's exactly the way they started out in the early 1900s. So Debbie started and was the coach and player, and then she joined the staff with the former coach and stayed there for 2 years, and then coached with me for 11 years. What an awesome coach. She did it all, and she brought this team together. I'm proud that I had the opportunity to work with her. Being a former football coach, I learned a lot, and needless to say. Debbie was also very instrumental in putting this event together from the softball side and rounding everybody up. And we have a great turnout today. So Debbie, I want to thank you, and you're well deserving of what you've done for this program. Thank you. We have a posthum award also, and Mondo's daughter, youngest daughter, is going to accept this. But when we brought, and when I say we hired, you got to understand, it's not like it is today where you have 14 paid assistants. You know, these folks worked other jobs and then came over to Northridge and coached. So it was a real love of the game. But we were again fortunate to secure one of the top pitching coaches in Southern California, Mondo Madrid. His resume included coaching the best of the best pitching coach enabled us to be as successful as we were. Annette? Is it Annette? Okay, come on up, Annette. This is the Chevy squad. He has two others. And Annette's going to next up. Yeah. Okay, we got that organized. Now we're ready to go. And I was given a script, but I think I've already gone by that. So anyway, there's two very instrumental people that are here also. First, the sports information director at the time, Ron. Why don't you work your way up here? Even though he was the all-school sports information director, I think our team felt he was their own sports information director. Did a great job. He put together one of our media guides that won a couple of awards, and he was also took stats and provided information to the media, which again, when you think about it, there wasn't a lot being printed in those days, and Ron enabled a lot of things to get into the Daily News and LA Times that you hadn't seen before, and so he did a great job for us. The next person that I'm going to introduce was very, very, very instrumental in bringing women's athletics, not only in the nation, but at Cal State Northridge, to the level that we were privileged to play on. She was supportive, she traveled with us, kept track of me, I think, and a number of times. But her administrative skills were beyond words. And having her lead us along this adventure was super. Dr. Judy Bray. Now we're going to introduce the team that made all this possible. We've heard the stories, at least a few of them, the ones I can tell you about. And, but, you know, each one of these were major contributors. Always used to, when I moved on to coaching, into administration myself, tried to emphasize to the coaches that it's not necessarily the players that are playing, because they're not disgruntled. But you've got to keep and coach to everybody. You just can't pick out the superstars and this and that. So this is a team. I have mentioned, you know, some individuals that had success because of the team, but the team's success was about the people I'm going to introduce. Kim Breeden, center field. Nancy Buell, outfield. Kathy Carter, second base, outfield. You know, a lot of these ladies have, you know, hyphenated names, but I know them as I'm introducing them, so I hope nobody's feelings hurt, especially the husband. Okay. Becky Drake, first base, and designated hitter. Jamie Gray, catcher. Terry Lamery, outfield. Show you the dedication. You guys were saying that somebody came from Connecticut. She lives in Australia. And Terry Lewandowski, catcher. catcher. Linda Rolandi, left field. Mishi McEnany, third base. She actually made Kat Slayton who she is because she wouldn't let her field the ball. And just awesome. Moving along, Angela Cerro, pitcher. Nancy Lucero, second base. Karen Mobilia, second base. Sue Oran, pitcher. Kathy Turner, shortstop. Sorry about that, Kat. Yes. Kathy Cat Slayton. Dana Vasquez, first base. Four of these ladies were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Stacy Lim, Mishi McEnany, Kat Slayton, and Kathy Turner. This is the first women's team to be inducted. Together, they were better. Thank you.
Hello there. I just wanted to say something, even though Coach thinks he cannot let us talk, but I'm speaking for the team, and it will be a short story. But when Coach joined us, he came from football and thought that he was going to make us all running backs or something, I don't know. But we weren't having it. So he put us in some crazy regimen of running and weightlifting and all kinds of stuff like that. And what he doesn't know is how we cussed him out all day, every day. So, but I'm here to tell you that I want to thank him for what he did do, because with the schedule that we had, we were all in such shape. I think that's what gave us all the strength to win that year and the years to follow. So I just want to thank him. Thank you.
I also have the privilege of announcing that a scholarship has been established in the name of Coach Torgerson to support the members of the Matador softball program. Congratulations, Coach. We hope to see you all at a Matador athletic event very soon. The next home event is this coming Wednesday night. Your men's basketball team plays their final regular regular season home game of the season, taking on the UC Riverside Highlanders, 7:05 at the Matador. Be there. Thanks again for being here. Good night.